Chapter 40 New Ventures to the Americas. Walter Raleigh and the New World. During Elizabeth's reign, the Spanish were busy building an empire. In 1556, Philip, the Spanish prince who had married Mary and who had offered to marry Elizabeth, had inherited the throne of Spain. He ruled not only over Spain itself, but over parts of Italy and Europe. And Spain's empire stretched over to the Americas as well. Spanish settlers had built colonies in Central and South America. Now, the Spanish were beginning to move into North America too. Two Spanish adventurers, Hernando de Soto and Francisco Vázquez de Coronado, had already explored parts of what is now the United States, and a Spanish colony had been built in the land that now belongs to Florida. If the Spanish took over both North and South America, the Spanish Empire would become the largest and most powerful in the world. Elizabeth didn't want Spain to become more important than England, so she gave English pirates permission to attack Spanish ships headed for the New World, and she began to plan English expeditions to North America. England needed to build its own colonies in North America before Spain claimed it all. Who would be in charge of the English attempt to explore North America? Elizabeth decided to give the job to one of her favorite knights, Sir Walter Raleigh. Walter Raleigh was a tall, handsome, hot-tempered man, always getting himself involved in tavern fights and arguments. But he was also a poet who swore eternal devotion to the Queen. One story tells us that Raleigh was walking with the Queen when the two came to a muddy spot in the road. Raleigh whipped off his velvet cloak, threw it across the mud with a flourish, and invited the Queen to walk on top of it. This sort of behavior charmed the Queen. She gave Raleigh land, money, and a special position at court, and she told him that he could organize the expedition to North America. That meant that Raleigh would arrange for ships, provisions, and sailors. In return, Elizabeth promised to give Walter Raleigh plenty of land in North America for his own. Raleigh had tried to get to North America before. When he was a young man, he had gone with his brother on an attempt to land in the New World, but their ships never made it across the ocean. First, a Spanish fleet attacked them and drove them back, and then a storm forced them to return to land. Later, Raleigh's brother tried once more to make it across the Atlantic, but his ship was lost at sea, and he was never seen again. This time around, Elizabeth ordered Raleigh to stay in England while the ships tried to reach North America. She didn't want her favorite knight to drown or be killed by the Spanish. In 1584, Raleigh filled 2 ships with provisions and men and sent them off. The sailors had orders to explore the coast of North America, find the best place for a colony to settle, and then return. The ships were gone for over a year, a long year for Sir Walter Raleigh. Finally, the ships were sighted on the horizon. They had returned safely. Raleigh ran down to the docks to hear their news. When the ship's captains came down the gangplanks, they were full of stories and enthusiasm. They had landed on the east coast of North America and found rich, fertile land, perfect for growing crops. The native Indians were friendly. 2 had even agreed to return to England on the English ships. The sailors had brought back pearls, soft, beautiful animal skins, and 2 new plants, potatoes and tobacco. They told Raleigh that the Indians put tobacco into clay pipes, lit it, and then blew smoke from their mouths. They had never seen anyone smoking before. Raleigh decided to try out this new tobacco for himself. One evening, he sat in his rooms trying to figure out how this new pipe worked. He blew and puffed and choked. Finally, he managed to breathe the smoke into his lungs. Just then, his manservant came into the room. When he saw smoke coming out of Raleigh's nose, he thought Raleigh was on fire. Yelling for help, he grabbed a bucket of cold water and dumped it over Raleigh's head. Now Raleigh had to find new colonists who would be willing to build a new town in the New World. Eventually, 107 men and women agreed to go to America. Raleigh filled their ships with seed, salt, livestock, and building tools and sent them off. He told them to name their new colony Virginia in honor of Elizabeth, who was known as the Virgin Queen. In 1585, the settlers landed safely in Virginia and began to build homes, fences, and gardens. But after a year, they begged to be allowed to come back to England. The Virginia winters were freezing cold. The ground wasn't as fertile as the first explorers had told them. They had so little food that they had been forced to eat their dogs, and the Indians were growing more and more unfriendly. Finally, a ship brought the unhappy colonists home. Walter Raleigh was determined to try again. He sent another ship full of settlers to Virginia, but this attempt failed as well. And in the meantime, Raleigh started to have troubles of his own in England. He had fallen in love with one of Elizabeth's maids of honor, a beautiful girl named Bess Throckmorton. But he knew that Elizabeth would be angry if she found out. She wanted Raleigh to be dedicated only to her service, so he and Bess Throckmorton married in secret, and Bess went on living at the palace. But then Bess discovered that she was going to have a baby. When the Queen found out what had happened, she arrested both of them and threw them into the Tower of London. She didn't like secrets at her court. After a month, Elizabeth let both of her prisoners out, but she banished them from her court and told them to go away and live in the English countryside. The year after his release, Raleigh wrote a poem that began, "Like ruthless dreams, so are my joys expired," and went on. "My lost delights have left me all alone in unknown ways." Walter Raleigh's days as the Queen's favorite were over. Although Raleigh lived for many more years and had many adventures, his story ends sadly. He never sent another expedition to North America. When Elizabeth died, there was still no English colony in the New World, and the king who inherited her throne charged Raleigh with treason and threw him in the Tower of London for 12 years. Finally, the king let Raleigh out and told him that he could go free as long as he went to South America and found gold for England. Raleigh tried, but when he returned empty-handed, he was beheaded.